Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to another edition of Nerd Week Live here on YouTube, brought to you by us, the folks at Nerd Caliber, your online website, YouTube channel for all sorts of nerdy information and news. I am Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber. I am first-person shooter. If you do some of that Facebook cosplay photography search and stuff, I'm Burly Adopter on Twitter if you're into that technology journalism thing. And that's pretty much it. Joining me tonight is the man with the bluest underlip beard you've ever seen. It's like cotton candy right there, man. Introduce yourself if you would, sir.
So, a little known fact, Smurfette and I kind of got a thing. She's my side piece. Yeah. And if you're sufficiently old to get... You're sufficiently old to get... Oh, no, that was her joke originally.
Oh, okay.
If you're sufficiently old to get this joke, I go with the Tidy Bowl Man, but most people have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. Hi, everybody. Greg Snyder, Associate Editor at Nerd Caliber, also known as Wonder Llama Cosplay and or Photography, depending on what mood takes me at the time. Speaking of which, Rodney and I will both be at Aresia this weekend in downtown Boston. Quick reminder in case you didn't know, I'm presuming if you're going, you knew this already, but it's at the Park Plaza Hotel, not at the Westin Hotel where it's been for the last several years, which I'm glad I found out through my press pass update process, because I would have gone to the Westin. So a little PSA.
Oops. Well, it's a good thing they got that information out there to those of us with the press passes. So, all sorts of people. Sarah, hello. Hey, Archer, hello. Mystic Warrior 8, hello. Spider-Man Peter Parker. Well, great trailer, Peter.
Excellent.
Mel, Corena, Savage Kid, hello. Welcome to the show. And we've got a lot of stuff to cover, and even though it's just the two of us, we're probably the two chattiest, so we're going to jump right into things. Yeah, we do that. We are going to start with, first topic is, I'm not using my lens.
My sweet can Nikon teacup.
Exactly. Is this topic right here. So that is a screenshot from Red Dead Redemption 2. Those are two of the Pinkerton agents that are in, I guess, a half dozen different missions within the game. And the news is that Pinkerton, which apparently is still an ongoing security and consulting firm, is suing Take-Two Interactive, the parent of Rockstar, who developed Red Dead Redemption and 2, for trademark infringement. So the suit claims that the game, by presenting the Pinkerton agents mainly as villains, or at least antagonists to your protagonist, is painting the company in a confusing light, or people may actually think that Pinkerton had something to do with the game, and therefore they're suing for the improper use of the name and of the Pinkerton badge, which you can see clearly on these two guys on their two jackets. So is this like just stupid? Or a crass money grab, or what's going on here?
Yes. Also yes.
Also yes. Okay.
So it'll be curious. I actually just started playing this a couple weekends ago. It's a slow go, so I haven't quite gotten to Pinkerton Town yet. It'll be interesting to see how they're presented. I don't really see where they have a leg to stand on, because I could point to any number of TV shows, probably movies as well, if I could think of them offhand, that typically, excuse me, that portray the Pinkertons as dicks. Ripper Street's a good example. I don't know if anybody watched that, but what else? Deadwood.
Yep.
They featured semi-prominently in that. I'm not a huge Western fan, but those are a couple that stand out. I can't ever remember them coming off as anything but antagonists, if not outright dickholes.
Well, the Pinkertons actually killed people during coal mining riots. This is Take-Two and Rockstar's response to it is, hey, this is historical information, folks, and we are creating a work of historical fiction. Pinkerton agents were, in fact, problematic during the West in many cases, and therefore this is just what what they were. Be interesting to see whether or not this actually plays out. I don't think that they have a case, the Pinkerton agency, because they are talking about an historical presentation that is set 150 years ago.
Right.
It's not like they're in any way interacting with modern Pinkerton activity. So
I can't imagine that the Pony Express people are lining up to file lawsuits against TV shows and et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I don't think too many people are painting the Pony Express people in bad light. But then again, Pinkerton painted themselves. They were basically, as they are presented in the game, they were thugs for hire. They were Blackwater, of the 1870s and 1880s.
There's a good analogy.
It's accurate, and in fact, that's why they wound up having the reputation of killing people during these coal mining strikes and riots.
Pshaw.
Pshaw, exactly.
You murder a few strikers. I mean, who hasn't?
Me, for one. And just a complete aside, in case anybody wondered why Arisia, in case you're going, is in a different hotel this year, it's because the Marriott chain was subject to a strike, and they had to change venue if they didn't want to have all of their attendees walking across the picket line. And the minute they announced the change, not quite the minute, but within 24 hours, the Marriott strike was settled. So it's too bad for them, but they're in a different hotel this one year.
This will be interesting.
It will be.
The Park Plaza is a little more buttoned down than the West End.
It's a lot more buttoned down than the West End. Although I know people who have worked there, and they handled. We had a previous job I had. We had a number of tech events there, and they handled a bunch of drunken techies pretty well.
I've been drunk in that hotel more than once.
There you go.
I won't lie.
Anyway, moving on to our next topic, and this is just a quick hit because it's more a rumor than anything else, because it's only been said as an exclusive to this one website. They are claiming that Warner Brothers Animation is going to be doing an animated Mortal Kombat movie, and even more so that they've landed just this crazy cast, including Joel McHale. It's a rumor, folks. There has been no confirmation. The founders of the site or at least the journalist co-founder of the site, the other one is an investor, has an awful lot of deep connections. He's been writing for a lot of good publications for a while. So it might be true. Or it might just be complete speculative garbage.
Okay,
exactly. Either way, we'll find out. Moving on to our next one, and this is good news. That is, of course, the Vision and the Scarlet Witch from an Avengers movie. I'm thinking that looks like Civil War, where early on they're being told about the Sokovia Accords. The news is that
Civil War or yeah, it must be. I was going to say Ultron, but we've got Falcon in the back, so probably Civil War.
Yeah, I think it's Captain America Civil War, I think. Anyway, the news is that it has landed a writer and showrunner, and this is Jack Schaefer, and she is one of the writers behind the upcoming Captain Marvel movie. So that looks like a potential win for them. There has been some speculation out there that that Loki, the Loki series, will not in fact star Tom Hiddleston. That he will be involved, but like as a narrator, and that it'll be a young Loki. I haven't seen anything like that about this. They're still saying in everything I've read that Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen are going to be the stars of this series. So fingers crossed that turns out to be true.
It could be pretty cool.
I would like it a lot.
I like the way they put this. Some of Marvel Comics' most enduring characters with a sometime tender love story binding them through the decades.
Yeah, that's been a difficult love story, folks.
I don't think the world is ready for a human synthesoid love story. It's too soon.
Oh, come on. There have been movies like that. Why not?
Ex Machina was good.
Ex Machina. I'm actually thinking there was an indie a while back. I can't remember the name of it. Um, sticking with Marvel, stuff, and this is wicked cool. Kawaii Glit, hello, how you doing? Any else new jumped in there? Nope. I think I said hello to Willy Pillow. If I didn't, hello Willy Pillow. Our next story is the latest member of the Marvel family is that character right there, Shade, and Shade is a drag queen.
Love it.
I love it. I love the fact that they're. First off, I love the design. The idea of using Rob Liefeld-esque pouch belts as a shoulder drape is, you know, if you're not going to use a feather boa, why not use pouch belt?
With a sleeveless one piece in the classic 80s X-Men.
Oh, yeah. It's so good. Now, the character was recently introduced and has basically no history or background to speak of. The character is in the page from the comic. What comic? Come on here. The character's a mutant.
It's an Iceman.
Yes. Oh, that's right. It's in the new Iceman. The newly, thank God, relaunched Iceman series, which hopefully will go more than the few issues that the last one did. But I think this is really cool. Honestly, I'd really like to see more of Shade's whole story. I mean, Shade's got to have a really interesting background and backstory. If for no other reason than to have the courage to both be out there as a drag queen and as a superhero. I mean, as a mutant in an era where they're still playing up the fact that mutants are not treated very well.
So that's, we could, don't want to go too deep down this rabbit hole because we talked about this at great length last year. But the article that we're both pulling some of this stuff from talks about the fact that one of the previous Iceman that Grace wrote was canceled after only 11 issues, along with, help me out, Rodney. There was a bunch of stuff that people were decrying as, not superhero-y enough. It didn't feature the core Marvel constituents.
It was that was the justification. There was also it smacked very much of the attempt to increase diversity that Marvel was very proud of.
Precisely.
Was being pulled back. And the diversity in this case being, in case you aren't aware of this, Bobby Drake was outed as gay. You're right. This is because it was the young Bobby Drake who was brought forward in time. Anyway, it gets way too confusing.
Yes. So the justification was poor sales of individual issues. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, this is a spin-off of a lesser well-known imprint or character rather. So it'll be interesting to see if it actually takes off at all. I hope so. It certainly would be nice to see. I mean, frankly, I'm friends with some drag queens, and Shade is the best name you could throw out there for a drag queen character.
And they use that right out of the. I hope
it does well.
They use that right out of the gate in her very first scene, in her first introduction, and how she's not here to cast Shade, because she's actually coming on to. She is the host of a show in which Dazzler is performing on stage.
The two of them need to take a road show.
Oh, that would be impressive. I haven't read Sina Grace's first run on Iceman, and I really need to do it because I wonder whether or not if Bobby Drake is a really interesting supporting character. And that's unfortunately all he's ever been in my mind as the X-Men. He's the comic relief. And he's the Johnny Storm of the X-Men, which is why the two of them often butt heads. Those two as a team is hilarious. They've written some wonderful stuff with those two. But individually, either one of them is unfortunately just too weak a character, I think. So we'll have to see how well that goes. But if all that this current run does is introducing Shade to the Marvel Universe, well done. Bing bong. So,
guess I got an email.
yeah, there you go. Luminous, welcome. I get the joke, Luminous. MJ Phillips, welcome. I don't think I said that yet. Luminous asks, hello, everyone. Is Rodney at Lewis's place? No, I did steal his idea of doing the color wash in the background, though, because I actually stole his idea of these wonderful LED wands that I use for lighting. So, they're very cool. But we're moving on to our next blue period. Yeah, me and Picasso. Moving on to our next topic. This young lady that just appeared on your screen is Lauren Tsai, and Lauren has been cast as Switch. Speaking of Marvel, speaking of mutants, Switch is one of the Hellions from the X-Men universe, and she will be a character on the next season of Legion, the amazing, amazing FX series that I can't recommend highly enough, that features David Heller, Legion, Legion, from the Marvel Comics, and the son of Charles Xavier, if you don't know your Marvel Comics history. So I think this is really cool. Now, Tsai is not really well known as an actor. Very few roles, and became famous on a Japanese reality TV series that is kind of like Real House on MTV or Big Brother. Bunch of people thrown together.
Yay!
It's set in Hawaii, which is, I take it, where Tsai is from, and I'm guessing because it was on Japanese TV, but she's going to be in an American show, that Tsai is probably bilingual, which is cool. But what was I going with this? Anyway, so I know what it is. She's also an artist, and she actually has a variant cover on a recent comic book out there. So multi-talented.
Who knew?
Who knew? I think it's cool that she's coming into, or that Switch is coming into the Legion universe. But specifically, whether or not this is going to mean a whole lot, who knows? We'll have to see. The other thing about Legion is that it is very much a, what's the term to use? Is very much not washed in superhero trappings as a TV. They aren't in costume. Nobody's running around in spandex tights. So if you're expecting Switch, who's actually kind of a brutal-looking character in as a Hellion, to look anything like Switch in the comic books, is probably not going to happen. Moving on. This one, so you guys probably know, if you're a Star Trek fan at all, that that's Locutus of Borg. The story is...
What is of what?
Locutus of Borg. That's Picard when he becomes a Borg. You haven't seen that episode? Or multi-episode, actually. Oh my god.
That doesn't even make sense. How does that even work?
You've got to go watch those.
I might be fucking with you.
Okay. Well, in that case, it's perfectly valid. So the reason I put this up there is that the news is somebody who's associated with the upcoming Picard show is that it will feature a, quote, radically altered Picard. So I thought the most radically altered Picard I can think of is Locutus of Borg. That's not at all what they mean, of course.
I don't know. He looked pretty altered, sitting in a hospital Johnny, yelling at lights and Kardashians.
Well, that's true.
Sorry, Kardashians.
The Kardashians works as well. I'd yell at them too. There are 4 Kardashians.
There are only 4 handbags.
In a January 2019 interview with The Hollywood Reporter, the producer, Alex Kurtzman, has said that, and the quote is that this version of Picard has been, quote, radically altered by the dissolution of the Romulan Empire. This article then goes on to speculate that that means, or that could mean, that this series will try to connect the regular Star Trek timeline with the now pretty much defunct and dead Kelvin timeline from the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. Because the Romulan Empire exists up through to the end of Next Generation, but in the Abrams movies, from the whole thing that drives Nero to go back in time is the destruction of the Romulan homeworld and the dissolution of the Romulan Empire. So, I don't know. Did we lose your audio? Oh, there you are.
Who's going to be our cool antagonist if there's no more Romulans? Are they going to be like weird refugees?
It could be.
We'll find out.
Could be that. Could be refugee Romulans. It could be a Romulan version of ISIS. It could be. Who knows? And who knows?
ISIS.
I would like to think that, if the dissolution of the Empire has radically altered him, wouldn't it be great if he's like the equivalent of, 2016 Grandpa Picard yelling about the danger of the Romulan terrorists out there and watching the equivalent of Fox News in the 23rd century.
Hey, you kids, get off my darn bridge!
I don't want to see that, actually, but I think it would be funny.
I mean, let's be honest. We'll all show up for Patrick Stewart. And hopefully the show they put around him will be good. Because it's freaking Patrick Stewart.
100%. And I still want Ian McKellen to do some guest spots. Because those two are absolutely perfect.
That could not be bad.
That could not be bad. There's no rumor that would ever happen, but, they're best buds, so you never know.
It'd be wrong not to.
It would be wrong not to. I would think that would be a laydown for the producers of the show, who are actually not Kurtzman, now that I think about it. I believe that there has been yet another major change. I guess maybe Kurtzman is still technically the producer of that show, but he is no longer guiding the entire Star Trek development at CBS and CBS All Access. Anyway. Moving on to our next topic, and this show just keeps landing like punches like crazy. Stargirl, coming up on DC Universe streaming service, has landed Luke Wilson as Stargirl's stepdad, who also will be in the robot, or I guess power suit. This is not really a robot. Stripes, which is Stargirl's partner at times in fighting crime. So back to Joel McHale. This is not a rumor. This is real. Joel McHale is in it. It's just got a fantastic supporting cast around this series. I mean,
I'm not clear. Is Luke Wilson contractually allowed to appear in anything that Wes Anderson doesn't make?
Yeah,
or is that Owen Wilson?
Or that could be Owen Wilson. Well, no, Wes Anderson did not make the Night in the Museum movies that I know of. Nor did he make My Super Ex-Girlfriend, which was a Luke Wilson joint. So
looks interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm really looking forward to the series now. I think Luke Wilson is one of those guys, when you say he's going to be, a superhero type in a superhero movie, until somebody says that, you would think it would never happen. Then you go, oh, well, that's like perfect.
Why the hell not?
Yeah. And so Stargirl is end of 2019, as I recall. So we got a little ways to go before we get to see this. But it is this year. And now we come to the next topic, which I'm so... what's the word? Anyway.
Mixed feelings?
Well, a little bit. I think I like the way they're going with this. Anyway, this picture that popped up here is actually from the upcoming season of American Gods, and the topic is that if you like American Gods, the first 7 minutes of the first episode is up on YouTube. You can go look at it right now. which, since we're on that image, Greg has given an interesting face. So, Greg, what do you think about the first 7 minutes of the first episode of American Gods?
It's a lot more Crispin Glover than I was hoping for.
Well,
I mean, it makes sense. I get it. He's the antagonist in a lot of ways. I don't know. Something about that whole thing just seemed ludicrous and absurd and overly campy, where it hasn't previously been campy.
Yeah, I can see that to some extent. I don't have a problem with them focusing on Crispin Glover's character because Mr. World is the antagonist in the books as well, correct?
Yep.
All right, so he plays a big role.
Well, you know, everyone's kind of their own worst enemies in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah,
but,
okay.
He's the, you know, from a traditional storytelling standpoint, yes, he's the main antagonist.
Yeah. So it makes sense for them to focus on him for a bit. It's a way to introduce, because he mentions that, you know, the mission he gives technology?
Yeah, Tech Kid.
Tech Kid. Is to go find out why nobody can find media. And that image, and I'll put the image back up, is that media has apparently transformed into new media. And this is new media. See if we if we get the name of this character, or this actor. It's not in this article. I didn't bring up the right article. My apologies. Kyun Kim is playing new media. Kyun Kim was in Shameless on not Stars, the other one, Showtime.
The other one.
The other one that begins with S. There's a few others, but so I was wondering how they were going to deal with that. Now, Greg, you've read the book. What do you think? Do you think that they're going to go completely in a different direction, or are they essentially just going to give media's role to new media?
I'm guessing probably the latter, since, I mean, this was originally written in, the mid to late 90s, when certainly computers existed, the internet existed, but not in anything remotely like what it is now. You know, Facebook wasn't there. I think MySpace might have actually been a thing at that point. But I could see, I mean, especially since Neil Gaiman is involved with the production, he's probably been instrumental in scripting an update that makes sense, especially with Gillian Anderson, who played media in the first season, departing the cast. That's a logical guess.
To go play a sex education teacher and mom in a Netflix series. So, which actually looks pretty funny. I haven't had a chance to look at that yet. And it's not really nerdy in any sense, so it doesn't matter. It'll be interesting to see where they take this. I am really looking forward to more than media, new media, or anything having to do with Mr. World or Tech Boy. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with Shadow, Mr. Wednesday, and their particular, now somewhat brought together group of serious misfits, and where they go. Because honestly, right now, their journey, to me, this is a journey story, and there's no conflict to speak of. I mean, we know that Mr. Wednesday tells everybody there's a big conflict. We haven't really seen it other than what they've tried to do to Shadow Moon.
Right. So remember, you've never read the book?
I have not read the book.
Okay, then I'll keep my mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut.
A lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. Suffice to say, never mind.
Yeah. Don't.
There's little you can say without being vaguely spoilery.
All right. Well, let's not be vaguely spoilery, and let's move on to our next topic. That is...
You did figure out who Mr. Wednesday is, though, right?
Well, yeah. I figured out who everybody is that's been introduced so far. But anyway, um, that is Stellan Skarsgård. We all know him and love him from Thor, Avengers, you name it. He's one of the best secondary or tertiary characters in the MCU, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In my mind, kind of right there behind Coulson. They've done some wonderful things fitting him into all sorts of interesting parts of the stories that are out there. That guy, that pleasant guy, has just been cast as Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, the really bad guy in the upcoming remake of Dune. And I'm 110% on board for that.
That is a quality bit of casting right there, gotta say. Yeah, I think within the last couple of weeks, last couple of shows, we were talking about Dune, the upcoming remake by Denis Villeneuve, the guy who did Blade Runner 2049, and some others. While Baron Harkonnen isn't a huge, pardon the pun, isn't a huge character.
The pun is he's really fat.
Throughout the book or throughout the existing versions of the movie, the TV miniseries, his presence looms large over every aspect of the story.
Yeah.
And I mean, I said, if I said it kind of jokingly, but not really, like Villeneuve calls me up and says, "Hey, we love you. Who do you want to play?" Hands down, Harkonnen, without even a second thought. I've already put on the right weight for it.
Well, compared to me, no. But I don't think either one of us, and frankly, Stellan Skarsgård isn't either baby-faced enough to actually play the way he's described in the book. But, so we talked about this last week. Dave Bautista is playing Beast Raban. Timothée Chalamet is going to be Paul, which I think is a great casting because he looks young enough and close to young enough. I mean, Paul is still going to be younger in the book than this kid, but he's also an amazing actor.
So that's funny. That's the thing that threw me a little bit when I first saw that, because in my mind it's Kyle MacLachlan, who was in his mid-20s in whatever that was, the early 80s, when 1984, when the David Lynch version was filmed.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the books, he's like 14 to 16 years old.
Yeah, in fact, he's 15 when they move to Arrakis. He's 15 years old. And Chalamet looks more the part. I mean, he's got kind of a Tom Holland youthfulness, that sort of big head kind of kid. So I'm very much looking forward to everything, and it's Denis Villeneuve. I mean, Arrival, Blade Runner 2049. Just please more, please, bring it on.
Really, the only major casting question in my mind still is who is Sting gonna play?
I still say Emperor. Make him the Emperor.
Oh, that'd be great.
He would be awesome as the Emperor.
I'm thinking his knife fighting in a diaper days may be behind him.
Probably. Yeah, I don't think that he's going to be Fade Routha this time. But and this is all, folks. If you have any references to David Lynch's Dune, Sting was Fade Routha. If you don't know who that is,
there's some stuff he could do. I mean, he could be
pretty important character.
That would work pretty well. He could be Duke Atreides.
Yeah, that's true. He could be Duke Leto. I would accept that.
He could be Dr. Yue. I
would accept that too.
Yeah, it's the right age anyway.
Yep.
Strikes me as unlikely, but I can dream.
Yeah, I mean, I want Patrick Stewart, who played Gurney Halleck in the movie in Dune, to come back and play maybe the Emperor, or
Oh, that'd be so good. That would be really good.
That would be awesome.
Luminous says no Sting. All right, yeah, it's highly improbable. It's just a funny thought because he had a small part in the original movie, but it was so iconic in its own way. I mean,
but it was
like a mid-20s Sting in like a space diaper with a knife, having a knife fight in a
It
throne
was a
room.
very important part in both the book and the movie, and so it was.
Yeah,
It was a small role, but a very important role.
Yeah.
Anyway,
As you can
Luminous,
tell,
I disagree with
two
you.
old farts are big fans of Dune.
Exactly. Yeah, he wasn't the best actor then, although he did some good stuff prior to that. Actually, Brimstone and
Fine.
Treacle, check it out. Um,
Deep.
Deep. Anyway, moving on to our next topic. You've all heard this. Bungie is leaving, has left Activision, going out on their own again. After having left Microsoft and gone out on their own, and then got acquired by Activision. And now they're back out. This time, instead of leaving a property, which they did when they left Halo with Microsoft, they are taking Destiny with them. And this is a clip from Destiny 2. An image from Destiny 2. So, so there are a couple of things going on here. This is, one, a smart call on Bungie's part just because it gives them better control of their own intellectual property. But the speculation out there is that this was the first really big rat to jump off a really rapidly sinking ship.
Activision?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think, personally, that there's more being made about the problems with Overwatch and therefore Blizzard than is really going on out there. That I don't think Blizzard is the kind of problem for Activision that a lot of people think it is. But I'm not inside the company right now. I don't have a look at sales stats, at game stats, or at the stats of any other Blizzard games like WoW and how that's doing for Activision. So, who knows? Maybe people who are deeper inside and who of the game industry are the ones who are saying this, and they may be right. They may know better than I am that Activision is rapidly heading towards the swirling drain, and Bungie's just the first one to make the move.
Chop it up and sell it for parts.
It wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, I mean, they got to own a fair amount of intellectual property that's worth something to someone.
That's true. This. Oh, look at that! Battery died.
And just like that, your blue period comes to an end.
My blue period. Now it's my gray period. So they do have. I don't think this is going to be like a Kurt Schilling, 38 studios. Nobody ever wanted to buy Kingdom of Amalur, or Kingdom of Amalur Reckoning intellectual property until finally somebody did for a song.
Just out of curiosity, does Steve Bannon own that property now?
Not that I'm aware of. I can't remember. We did an article on this. I'd have to go back and look it up. Or we did a segment on this about who actually did buy it. But
don't know, don't care.
It was bought from the state of Rhode Island because they own it. After all of that nightmare.
What a country!
Exactly. Anyway, so Bungie, let's hope this works out for you. We get more good games, good stuff, and you don't quite have the same demands of a publisher overlord putting the thumb screws to you. Next topic is the latest teaser, the first teaser, finally a teaser for Punisher Season 2. And I gotta say, it didn't overwhelm me. I was whelmed at best.
Give it a resounding meh.
A resounding okay, looks good. Now, we'll be able to find out exactly whether or not it's any good in just a couple of days. I mean, it's this coming Friday is when it hits. And if the snowstorm is worse than they say, I might not be going into Arisha that early, just to let you know. I might wind up watching a lot of this. Yeah, it's like on the nose. So, it looks odd. I have no idea what the Roadhouse scene. If you haven't seen it, folks, it opens up in a roadhouse. where Frank intervenes in a bar situation.
Is Patrick Swayze there?
And yeah, it's like, oh, look, Dalton. Dalton's the best, man. Oh. In fact, I think I said that when I posted it into the group.
Probably.
Roadhouse 2, Dalton gets pissed. It obviously
heavily armed.
Heavily armed. It obviously goes back to New York at some point because they're wandering the streets of New York. That is not the kind of venue behind them in. Go back to the scene, back to the shot here, where you could say, "Yep, that's where you'd put a roadhouse right there." They're obviously back in a city, and I'm assuming New York based on some of the other stuff that you see. But they then introduce Jigsaw. And Jigsaw is still really, really handsome with some scars. Jigsaw should look like somebody took every piece of his face off and then put it together with super glue. I mean, he's in the comics. He's hideous, and I understand that the actor is a good-looking guy, and they probably don't want to, ruin that, but. Come on.
So it's interesting. I haven't actually watched the trailer, and to be honest, I haven't watched season 1. There's just too damn many series these days. But I was reading something on, I want to say the AV Club or Gizmodo, one of those sites, that was talking about the Netflix Marvel season 2 track record, if you will.
Yeah.
How season 2 of every one of the Marvel Netflix shows has suffered in quality. They generally haven't lost showrunners, they haven't lost writers, they haven't lost their primary actors and cast. I thought the obvious exception being Iron Fist 2. The bar was set, a phone book off the ground, and it was easy to clear. Did I say Iron Man 2? Or did I say Iron Fist 2?
You did say Iron Fist. And,
okay,
and
good.
I would say a phone book.
White pages, not the yellow pages.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say or the yellow
for rural Maine.
Yes, I would say a phone book for like my old hometown of Freiburg. So you were talking like,
Anyway, so it's it's an interesting question. That's maybe we'll do a show on that at some point and just sort of talk about the season 1 good, season 2. But there's no rhyme or reason for it.
And the problem is that season 3 of Daredevil showed that you can come back from that in an amazing way. And season 2 of Iron Fist was, like you said, even though the bar was so ridiculously low, it was leaps and bounds above the previous season. So all of this is kind of a moot point because we know it's not going to go past this season. They're going to announce the cancellation right after, at some point this Friday. I'm almost positive.
So by over the weekend, chances are pretty good.
Yeah. So,
wouldn't that be a weird bit of irony if of all of the Netflix Marvel shows, this didn't get canceled? Every other one of them made it through 2 or in some case 3 seasons. This is, I don't think this has the cachet that Daredevil did. That had to have been their, moneymaker, however the hell that works on Netflix. And they just pulled the ripcord on Daredevil without looking,
Yeah,
all leap, no look.
It depends on whether or not the NRA decides to sponsor it. But anyway, I don't think there's this. Moving on.
Worms, open
that can of worms. Moving on to our next topic. Yet another trailer. The Game of Thrones trailer, which was really wonderfully moody. Showed you very little but still teased an awful lot. It's a really cool look, and we finally get to see when it happens, and that is April 14th. April 14th is when we get to watch the final season of Game of Thrones on HBO. I am really super looking forward to this. The teaser looked, to me, incredible. I love the little bits of throwback imagery. Now, if you haven't seen it, the very first thing is you see Robb Stark walking through in Winterfell the Stark family crypt there underground, and he walks by the statue of Lyanna, and I don't know if I want to give out that spoiler, because it might still be a spoiler for people who haven't watched the last season. But anyway, the feather that Robert Baratheon placed in her hand in the very first episode of the very first season is still there, and wafts out as he walks by and settles to the ground. I'm like, that's cool. It's cool because it also, even though it's clearly not a crow feather, or a raven feather, it is the only indication of Bran's activity, if there is any, in this upcoming season, is, a feather, which could signify the presence of the three-eyed raven in that room while they're there. Lots of little things like that. It's really cool, I thought.
So I am one of those weirdos who generally doesn't watch trailers because I know there's no spoilers. They're not, they're not going to be like, and now that the trailer is over, here's who the Night King really is. That's not going to happen. I just prefer to go in cold, personally. But I know exactly what I'll be doing April 14th, and it involves a beer and a television.
See if I can order me some of those Game of Thrones beers. Get that.
Oh, those are really good. We had a little Game of Thrones season opener party here a couple years ago, and I'm trying to remember what they did. They were like the Targaryen, Stark. I think there was a Tyrell. I think those are all the ones, and they're made by Rogue, the same guys that do Dead Guy Ale.
Yeah.
And they were good. They were tasty beer.
Cool. Looking forward to that, and looking forward to seeing the show. Every episode, from what they're saying, is pretty close to a feature-length movie, so at least 90 minutes, probably closer to 120.
Yeah. Which is cool because there's only 6.
Yeah. So, but you're realistically getting pretty close to 10 or 12 episodes worth of content out of these 6 episodes. So, April 14th, yay. Looking forward to it. Yeah. So our next topic is kind of newsy. I'm not really sure how we deal with this because it's not sort of like, look, isn't this cool thing happening and coming up? That's a burned out car, folks. That's a burned out car that was torched at Anime Los Angeles this weekend when a stalker fan of a cosplayer was caught on security camera, so not the brightest bulb in the world, pouring starter fluid of some sort, gasoline probably, all over this cosplayer's car and setting it on fire, which of course caught other cars and destroyed a combination of 7, or a total of 7 vehicles in this parking lot before it was put out. The suspect was nabbed pretty quickly because, one, the cosplayer had a good idea who might have done this because this person was a stalker, and 2, soon as they checked the hotel parking lot, by the way, this was in the parking lot of one of the actual official hotels of Anime LA. Soon as the cosplayer, or as soon as the police checked the security camera for the hotel, well, there the guy is, and she was able to absolutely 100% identify him.
Yeah, stalkers not necessarily known for their brilliant thinking things through.
Yeah. Yep.
Brutal.
So I don't know if there's anything deeper to take about this other than,
what the fuck?
What the fuck? And we've got to, frankly, we've got to identify these people and keep them out of the events that we want to continue to enjoy. I think that's a given. This kind of behavior is the kind of behavior that any stalker could elevate themselves to. Or worse, frankly, and there are examples of worse.
And this kind of shit is infuriating. I mean, we've both worked at a lot of cons, good, bad, and otherwise. We've seen a lot of meathead behavior, or been in the middle of breaking up meathead behavior. Um, it's I don't know whether to be pissed or depressed or both. It's just it fucking pisses me off.
I 100% am with you there. It is both infuriating and depressing. It's infuriating that people have to go through with this. It's depressing that we seem to be unable to do anything about it. But you can lift all this right back up to the response to these kind of people on social media, or any other. Twitter won't do anything about it. Facebook won't do anything about it. So why would a con do anything about it? The cons actually do a much better job than any of the social media, and they still can't efficiently, figure out a way to completely stop these people.
I mean, it's kind of unknown. It doesn't go into a whole lot of detail. It's possible that the person who was has been, the finger's been pointed at them for lighting the fire. Whether the con actually kept that person out or not, I'd have to dig back into this kind of the lower end of the article, if you will. More news, less opinion piece.
Right.
So it's entirely possible that the convention staff, whether they'd been given an advance warning, whether they just, got their spidey sense was tingling, whether the guy did something prior to going out to the parking lot and, using a Molotov cocktail, so to speak. Hard to say. A parking lot, unfortunately, is an easy target.
Yeah.
There's probably, it's probably not a lot of security out there. I'm sure, obviously, there's cameras, but it's not like they've got people out there keeping a close watch on people's parked cars.
And it's not even like a parking garage where you would have fire suppression in the parking garage. Yep. So, Luminous, Luminous says, I keep reading more stories about stalkers of cosplayers, and I'm surprised anyone would want to be a cosplayer after reading these. I can't disagree. It would suck. It would be so depressing if people like that push people out of the kind of activity and fun that they like to do. We need to identify these people and stop them. That's I think the only solution, although that's not a solution. Anyway, we're running pretty close to the end of the show. We're not going to come up with a solution to that. And Greg gave me my beautiful segue already with the spidey senses tingling. So we're going to go into our last topic, and that is just 7-8-ish hours ago, the trailer for Spider-Man Far From Home dropped. And if you haven't seen it, go watch it. You get to finally see a really good look at how they actually handle Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, as opposed to just some really far off, look, here he is in his costume shots. And it's comic book, man. It's, he's got the fishbowl and everything. And the green smoke and the drifting around, and it's primo.
I will say I did watch this. Looks damn good.
It looks damn good. Let me bring that back up there. This is one of the new Spidey suits. And he has a pile of them in just this trailer. You get to see him in a real quick clip, put on the stealth suit, or put the goggles down to finish off the stealth suit. He's in what looks very much like the suit that was given to him at the end of Homecoming. Here's what's really interesting is that there is no sign, no hide nor hair indication of the Iron Spider suit. And this is going to be spoilery-ish speculation. It's not spoilery because the movie's not out. We do know that this takes place immediately after the end of Avengers Endgame. Sony executive in charge of this property has said that on record.
How does that work
And
exactly?
Avengers 4, Endgame, not Infinity War.
True.
So Avengers Endgame. The fact that, and this has been brought up by a couple of different people, the fact that nobody here seems to be freaking out about anything, including Aunt May not having a problem, it seems to be, about sending Peter off to a foreign country. Peter saying, nobody in Europe's going to need a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. That doesn't sound like the reaction of people who just lost 50% of everybody they love. And somehow got it back, but the memory of the destruction or the deaths would still be there. And I mean, haunting people. There would be people, PSD, wandering the streets. PTSD. That and the fact that the Iron Spider suit is nowhere in there indicates that the theory that what happens is the time travel aspect of Avengers 4 is going to be resetting things so that Thanos never gets a chance to do the snap.
Sure,
And
that scans.
if they can figure out ways of keeping the Infinity Stones from him, or what, I'm not sure exactly what that one solution.
I know.
Yeah.
We all know that's how it's going to play out. It just smacks of a giant cosmic Deus Ex Machina.
Well, yeah, it's kind of, well, in this case, they're actually deliberately thinking to do it. And they have a time. Well, they may have a time stone. We don't know.
Yeah,
they know that time travel is possible.
Yep. I mean, just because you can see the corner doesn't mean you don't paint yourself into it.
Well, true. This is true.
Anyway, as always, we'll reserve judgment until we have the film in front of us.
Exactly, and that is Avengers Endgame. That's whether or not it's going to come off as really trite or a Deus Ex Machina or they write it so that it's done really well. Yep. But I think one of the reasons why they've been holding off on putting out a trailer for this is because it kind of lends credence, pretty strong credence, to that theory. That it's going to be for lack of a better term, use the comic book term, a retcon.
Yeah.
They're going to change the history as though it never happened.
Right.
If that's the way they go, I want them to go full on Rick and Morty with it.
Oh God, that'd be good.
I want them to be aware that what they're doing is they're splitting a timeline, and that there's a timeline where they basically just said, okay, that timeline's screwed. We don't want to do that one anymore, and we're just going to leave those people with half of the universe dead.
And then we're going to go split screen, so we've got 2 Thanos and then 4 Thanos, and
that would be awesome. I would love that.
And then they start shooting each other from frame to frame. I mean, if we're talking full-on Rick and Morty.
Thanos shows up to Peter Parker's like, come on, Peter, we've got to go.
All right, so are we basically wrapped up on that?
We're basically wrapped up on that.
I just want to throw in, this wasn't on the agenda, but since we were, while looking at some information about Spider-Man, there was also a link to some semi-new news about, it's more sort of speculation than news, about the Lord of the Rings series coming to Amazon, the so-called prequel. This has kind of been talked about, but it sounds like this is firming up, that it's mainly going to focus on young Aragorn, which kind of makes sense. They're not going down the road of Lord of the Rings. It's going to be more stuff about Aragorn's family history. If you're a Tolkien nerd, not naming any names, me. There's a lot of interesting stuff. That can go on back there. And this is a new one. There's apparently there is talks that in some capacity, Peter Jackson might be involved.
Well, as long as he doesn't make it about giant cities wandering around on wheels. Because that didn't work.
Not so much. So that sounds like rampant speculation at this point. So we'll call that rumor mongering more than anything else. But they're also talking about filming in New Zealand again, which would be sweet. Because let's face it, New Zealand is Middle Earth for all intents and purposes. And while there's no hard date, they are shooting for going to air on 2021, so not too far away.
2021 still is too far away for my taste, but we'll take it. And if they do focus on young Aragorn, you got to remember he was wandering as a ranger for decades before we see him in Lord of the Rings. He's got so many possible stories in that, under that cloak of his, that it's,
I mean, there you go. There's a perfect framing device for an episode. Strider goes to the Prancing Pony in Bree and just regales travelers with stories from the hinterlands. You could just do an entire episode of vignettes of interesting little
that would be very cool, except he never would do that. I mean, that was the thing. Is everybody knows he just keeps his own counsel, sits there with his pipe, and never says anything.
Well, that makes for boring television.
Well, that's true. Hey, if that is the case, they've got to have the first encounter with Arwen. Yeah.
Funny that you mentioned that. There is talk that the same article talks about where did this go? Drawing inspiration from the book's appendices, Aragorn's family history. Where else did this go? Some of the relationship with Arwen, who it almost in Lord of the Rings, it almost, because there's too much to get into in that movie, which was already a lot.
Right.
They don't really get too much into the fact that they've known each other for decades.
Right.
The movies don't exactly make it look like they kind of just met, but it almost looks like a meet cute. Anyway, so I'm a huge Tolkien nerd. I don't think I could go toe to toe with Stephen Colbert. Pretty sure he would take me down.
I don't think anybody could go toe to toe with Colbert.
Yeah, I would. I'd be willing to let him humiliate me on national television if I was given a chance.
And we're talking about Tolkien and nothing else. So, and on that note, folks, we're a few minutes over. KH23 phase, hello, and right in time for us to say goodbye. Thank you all for joining in the chat. It was a lot of fun. We liked that a lot. And we will see you all next Tuesday, 8 o'clock, usual time, for more nerd news. So for me, Rodney Brown, Editor-in-Chief of Nerd Caliber, for Greg, Wonder Llama Cosplay, Wonder Llama Photography, Snyder, good night, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.